Hello and welcome back to Weave at Brooklands. In this short video today, I actually want to help you understand your reed a little bit better. Just understanding that little formula of numbers that is stamped into the top of your reed can make such an enormous difference to the planning of your project and to the ease of calculations. And these silly little tips that I'm going to give you now, well, actually they're not silly. They took me an awfully long time to figure out, and so I'm delighted to have the opportunity where I can actually share them with you. Make your lives a little bit easier, because it won't take you quite as long to figure out these things as it took me. So as you can see here, I've got two reeds placed one on top of the other. And this is purely and simply for the sake of comparison. Now, before I go any further, full disclosure here, I do work only with the Ashford looms. So I can't comment on whether or not the Schacht looms or the Kromskis or any of the other brands of rigid Heddle actually contain this information on their reeds. But from our point of view, from working with an Ashford point of view, I'm just going to do a quick decipher on what these numbers actually mean. So the first thing is that after the word Ashford, there's a full stop. And I thought it was just somebody going overboard on the punctuation, but in fact it isn't at all. That little spot after the Ashford and before your formula marks the center of your reed. Now, depending on the reed size that you're using, the center of your reed could be either a slot or a hole. I think if my memory serves me correctly, if I use a 10 dpi reed, I seem to remember that the center of the reed is in a hole. So it can be either, so don't worry about that too much. Just know that that little dot marks the exact center of your reed. What is actually even more important than that is the little formula, the little combination of numbers that comes after that. You can see on this reed that I have in place on my work, we've got a 5 and then a space and then 20/10. On this reed, which is a 10 dent reed, it says 40/10. So the first number, the 10 or the 5, or if you were using a 7.5 reed or a 12.5, it would be stated there, because that is the number of ends per inch that we have in our reed. And when I talk about a warp end, it is a single warp thread. So we have a single end in a slot and a single end in a hole, and an end in a slot and an end in a hole. Your formula refers to warp ends. It doesn't refer to slots. It refers to the total number of threads in your warp. So, just to quickly backtrack, because I got sidetracked, we have here a number 5 reed and a number 10 reed. This little combination of numbers next to the reed size gives us a metric conversion. Now, why do we need a metric conversion? Well, we need a metric conversion because the reed sizes refer to the number of warp ends per inch, not per centimeter. And we have this metric conversion because we were always taught in school that an inch equaled 2.5 centimeters, and that is not actually quite correct. It's slightly off. And while it's not going to make too much of a difference working over 30 or even 50 centimeters, if you're working over 150 centimeters or 120 centimeters, it's going to make an enormous difference. So what this little formula here means is that we have 20 warp ends per 10 centimeters. Or, in the case of the 10 dpi reed, we have 40 warp ends per 10 centimeters. If you do your imperial to metric conversion over 10 centimeters, it gives you an absolutely accurate conversion. So that's why they've done it over 10 centimeters. Now, this little formula here can give us even more information than that. It can help us calculate the number of warp ends that we are going to have in our piece. So this is a 50 centimeter wide reed. If I wanted to put up a 50 centimeter warp, I could simply look at this conversion. I could see, okay, I'm going to have 40 warp ends per 10 centimeters. Therefore, over 50 centimeters, I would have 40 times 5, which would give me 200 warp ends. Likewise, if I wanted to know how many slots I would need, say, for example, I were planning a project with regular stripes or something like that, and I wanted to know how many slots I was dealing with so that I could work out my color sequence, I could take that number, my 200 warp ends, which is determined by the 40 per 10 centimeters, and simply divide it in half. So you divide 200 in half, it gives you 100, and I can tell you now that if I count the number of slots that I have here, I will have 99. So we take half the number of warp ends and you simply subtract 1, because this slot on the extreme right hand side of our reed is related back to that hole on the extreme left hand side of our reed, and we use neither that hole nor that slot. So you take your total number and you simply subtract 1, and that gives you the exact number of slots that you'll be dealing with if you're planning a striped pattern. Don't gloss over these little numbers here, because they contain very useful information, and if you just follow the guidelines that I've given you, they will help you with your calculations as well. If you found this information useful, please give me a thumbs up. I'd really like that. And if you'd like to get more of the same, then you're welcome to hit the subscribe button too. And most importantly of all, if you would like to receive regular weaving resource developments, you can follow me on my Patreon page. I've put the link in the comments below. I would love to welcome you to the Weaving Diaries. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next time.